Today we're talking about something that it seems like we're not really supposed to, which is whether or not we can use an SM57 as a drum overhead mic. Now, literally speaking, of course we can, but I think it's an interesting question because despite the ubiquity of this microphone, just about everybody has one. You see them on guitar cabs, you see them used on snares, you see them used on vocals. Despite everybody and their mother having one of these microphones, you almost never see them in an ambient mic position, certainly not over the top of drums. I have a lot of students that will get into recording and this will be their first microphone. They'll ask, can I even use this to record as an overhead? And it's a fair question because like I said, you almost never see these used as overheads. It's much more common to see condensers or ribbons. And so what I want to do today is take the veritable SM57 and pit it against a ribbon and a couple of condensers to see, is it even worth using as an overhead? So the contenders are, of course, the SM57. I also have an Oktava MK-012, which is a small diaphragm condenser. It's a vintage mic. It's not very expensive at all. The SM57 is, $100-ish. The Oktava is maybe $150. We've got an AKG 414 B-ULS. This is an older version of the AKG 414, which is also a very common large diaphragm condenser. These you can find anywhere from $500 to like $1,200, depending on how good of a deal you get. And then the last mic is certainly the most expensive, which is a Coles 4038 ribbon. So all of these are going in the overhead position, just right above my snare here. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated. I'm going to measure to make sure that they are all 37 inches above the snare, and we'll see what they sound like. We'll do the demo completely dry, and then I'll add some EQ and some compression that I think makes sense for each microphone. So here we go. Okay, so what did you hear? What was your favorite? And maybe more interestingly, did you like the more expensive microphones more? In order from least to most expensive, we've got the 57, the Oktava M k-012, the AKG, and then the Coles. I definitely noticed a fairly significant difference between all of the mics, but I wouldn't necessarily say that any of them were universally better. It's just more like a difference in frequency response that I was getting. I thought that the Oktava M k-012 was probably the brightest overall. It had a lot of crispy high end, whereas when we switched to the AKG, the 414, the large diaphragm condenser, that one was still relatively bright, but certainly not as much as the Oktava. And then the tone got even darker as we went to the Coles 4038. That was an overall very, very dark signal, and it required a fair amount of high-end boost to get it to sound how we might normally want it to. And then the 57, this is what we're here to evaluate. The 57 had a very different tone. It was very, as you might expect if you're familiar with this mic, it was very mid-forward. So I wouldn't say it was bright per se, but it was very, very present because of that mid-frequency push. Now this is something that can absolutely be modified with EQ, or it might be the sort of thing where maybe you liked that mid-frequency push, maybe you liked that sound more than the other mics. There's really no wrong answer here, and there's a strong inclination to look at price tags and correlate that to value or to quality of sound, but you really want to just trust your own ears and what do you want the drum set to sound like when you record it. So my conclusion here is that the SM57, yes, gives you a different overhead sound than other microphones, but any mic is going to give you a different sound from any other mic. So it's not really a question of whether you are allowed to use it or not. You absolutely can, but you need to decide whether that's the sound that you like. So again, I'm curious to know, and I want you to let me know in the comments, which one was your favorite, and if price wasn't an issue, which one would you grab? So thank you for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.